Dear students, we will continue with the next heading called as types of asexual reproduction called sporulation. The meaning of sporulation, it is nothing but the formation of spores. The formation of spores or synthesis of spores is called as sporulation. In sporulation, we have different types. The first one is called sporangiospores. Sporangiospores. Here, there is a presence of the plant body called as hyphae or mycelium. This plant body hyphae or mycelium produces sporangia. This produces sporangia. Inside this sporangia, so inside this sporangia, there is a formation of sporangiospores. Sporangiospores, and this sporangiospores, once it is formed, the sporangia is ruptured and the spores are thrown out, and this falls on a suitable place to give rise to new plant. Example called as rhizopus. Example, rhizopus is one of the example for sporangia. Now we'll go for one more example called as zoospores. So this zoospores are present in the algae called as chlamydomonas. Algae called chlamydomonas, and one more called as ulothrix. So in chlamydomonas and ulothrix, there is a formation of zoospores. Here there is a presence of a plant body, and this plant body has a presence of host cell, and here it produces zoospores, and these zoospores are produced in one vegetative cell. Once this is been ruptured, it throws out the spores. Same way in chlamydomonas also. This is in ulothrix. Whereas in chlamydomonas also, there is a formation of cup-shaped chloroplast and biflagellated. This is chlamydomonas. In chlamydomonas also, it produces biflagellated zoospores are being produced. Once the wall is ruptured, it throws out the zoospores and falls at a suitable place to give rise to new individual. Next, we'll go for the third one called as conidia. The conidia produces conidiopores. This conidiopores produces conidia, and this can be noticed in a plant called as Penicillium. Penicillium notatum, in this there is a presence of conidia formation. Again in this there is a presence of hyphae. The hyphae or a mycelium produces conidiophores. The mycelium or hyphae produces conidiophores. This conidiophores produces conidia. This conidia is cut off, pinched off, falls on a suitable place to give rise to new plant. So all this are called as different types of sporulation. So we'll start with the next one called as fragmentation. So the examples for fragmentation is planaria, earthworm. So in this planaria, the animal body is cut into pieces. The animal body is cut into pieces. Each piece is giving rise to new individual. Same way in earthworm. In earthworm, there is a presence of segmented body, and this segmented body is divided. Segments are also called as metameres, and this segmented body, the tritulum is present here, and here anterior region there is a mouth, posterior region there is a presence of anus. When the individual is cut into pieces and each piece is developing into new type or new individuals, hence it is also called as fragmentation. Now we'll start with the next study called as vegetative propagation. The meaning of vegetative propagation: the vegetative parts of the plant body helps in reproduction. This vegetative parts which helps in reproduction are called as propagals. Vegetative propagals, or the vegetative parts also helps in reproduction, hence it is called as vegetative propagation. So we are going forward. The first one called as, by taking an example, root. Vegetative propagation in root. Here the example is called as sweet potato. So when you take an example called as sweet potato, in this, the sweet potato, the root which has a presence of elongated structures like this, and this is cut into pieces and each piece is giving rise to new plant body, hence root also helps in vegetative propagation. Now we'll go for the next one, vegetative propagation in stem. Vegetative propagation in the stem. So the stem also helps in vegetative propagation and it is divided into three types. First one is called as underground stem. So in underground stem, the stem is below the ground but helps in reproduction, hence we call underground stem, acts as a vegetative propagals. Under this, the first one is called as rhizome. So the rhizome example is ginger, Gingiber officinalis. This is one of the example, and the other one is called as turmeric. Turmeric called as Curcuma longa. So in this two, we see that the stem is cut into pieces, each piece gives rise to new individuals. So this is one called as rhizome. The second one is called as stem tuber. Even the stem tuber also helps in vegetative propagation. Example, potato called as Solanum tuberosum. Even this potato has a presence of nodal region, and in nodal region there is a presence of axillary buds. These axillary buds are called as eyes. Eye helps in reproduction, hence it is called as vegetative propagal. Next, we go for the, and the other one is called as bulb. So the bulb is called as onion, called as Allium cephas. So even this Allium cephas, there is a presence of axillary bud which helps in new individual. Next, we go for the other one called as coral. In this coral, one of the example is yam, Amorphophilus. Amorphophilus. This also has a presence of nodal region with axillary buds which give rise to new individuals. So all these are called as underground stem modifications. Now we go for one more called as subaerial stem modifications. So in this subaerial stem, this is growing on the ground and helps in reproduction. Whereas first one under this is called as runner. Example, oxalis. So this will grow horizontal to the ground. When it is cut, it has a capacity to give rise to new individuals. Next, stolon. Stolon. Here there is an elevated stem is present. When I take a stem, the stem is having the presence of elevation like this and give rise to new individuals. Examples for this is jasmine and mint. And the third one. The third one is sucker. Sucker. Here lower nodal regions will have a horizontal stem which give rise to new individual. Example, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum is one of the example for sucker, and the fourth one is called as half set. So the half set is nothing but an aquatic plant. It is present in the surface of the water, hence it is called as an aquatic plant. Example for this is Eichhornia. Eichhornia, it is also called as terror of Bengal. So it is water hyacinth. This stem grows horizontal to the water surface. When the stem is cut, it gives rise to new individuals. So this is some of the subaerial stem modifications, and we go for the next one called as third type of stem modifications is called as aerial stem modifications. Aerial stem modifications. Under this aerial stem modifications, the first one is called as phylloclad. So in this phylloclad, the example for this is called as asparagus. Yellow. For phylloclad, the example is called as opuntia. Opuntia called as cactus. Whereas the second one is called as cladode. For this cladode, the example is asparagus. So here, opuntia is nothing but phylloclad, where there is a presence of stem is green in color, helps in modifications and helps in photosynthesis. Here, the stem is cut into pieces, it gives rise to new individuals. This can be noticed in opuntia called as phylloclad. Whereas in cladode asparagus, the stem is elongated and has a presence of whorls of leaves, and it has a presence of the stem is cut into pieces. Each piece is giving rise to new individuals, and this is usually called as cladode type of reproductions. Now we'll continue with the next one called as sexual reproduction. So the sexual reproduction involves two parents. So it is biparental reproduction is called as sexual reproduction. One of the parent is always called as a male parent and the other one is a female parent, or two different individuals helps in reproduction is called as sexual reproduction, and also they help in the formation of gametes. Here the gametes are synthesized, hence it is called as gametogenesis. Sexual reproduction has gametogenesis. One is a male gamete and the other one is a female gamete. Both the gametes are fused to form a zygote. This zygote undergoes further development to give rise to embryo and a new individual. So such type of reproductions are present, but here in a sexual reproduction, the individuals will not be similar to their parents, because the parental genetic makeup is different and the individual genetic makeup is different, so it will be a different one. They are not similar to the parents. Next, in this we are going to see some terminologies. So what I said is gamete synthesis is called as gametogenesis. Same way we are going for the word monoecious. The word monoecious, in one individual, mono means one. One individual has both the sexes. Male sex is also present, female sex is also present. Hence, monoecious is also called as bisexual. Monoecious is also called as bisexual. Both the male and female sex organs are present. Example, hibiscus, or even in earthworm, we see that both the male and female sexes are present. Now, we'll go for the next word called as dioecious. The word di meaning two. There are two individuals helps in reproduction, hence they are called as unisexual. Hence it is called as unisexual. Male is different, female is different. For that there is a presence of dioecious. So this is about one. Now we will go for the other one called as, we take an example, algae, carp. This is one of the monoecious which has the male sex called as antheridium and the female sex called oogonium. So antheridium produces male gamete, oogonium produces female gamete. So this is a camel. When we go for a plant called as Morgantia. So in this Morgantia, the plants are unisexual. So the male plant is different, female plant is different. The male plant is called as antheridiopore. The male plant has a male sex organs called as antheridiopores, which produces biflagellated zoospores. Zoospore has a male gamete and a female called as archegoniospore. Female called as archegoniospore, which looks like a flask-like structures. Here, like antheridium, there is a like archegonium. Here there is a flask-like structures. Once it is been opened, matured or opened, this biflagellated zoospores swim in the water. Biflagellated zoospore swim in the water, reach a female plant and passes with a oogonium and fuse with a egg cell to give rise to zygote. So this is a plant. When we take example called as cockroach. Even in cockroach, it is unisexual. Male cockroach is different, female cockroach is different. By seeing the abdominal part, easily we can identify male and female. Hence, cockroach is sexually dimorphism. So, male cockroach will have anal styles and anal cilia is present and it produces male gametes. Whereas a female cockroach has the abdomen broader and seventh segment. On the seventh segment of an abdomen, 8th and 9th segments are fused and 10th segment is separate. So here in a female cockroach, the female gametes are produced. When we go for higher organisms like humans, when we take example humans, in humans also they are called as unisexual. Male is separate, female is separate. The male sex organs are called as testes. Male sex organs are called as testes. It produces sperm. Whereas the female sex organs are called as ovaries. A pair of ovaries are present. The ovaries, and this ovaries produces egg or ova. Whereas human matured egg or ova is called as Graafian follicle. So I used some of the terminologies here. In the plant especially, we use the word bisexual. Whereas in an animal like earthworm, we use the word hermaphrodites. For a bisexual, we use the word hermaphrodites. So all these terminologies to be remembered for your NEET exams. We'll go for the next study. So we go for the next study called as phases of life cycle. So in all the living organisms, they have 3 different phases. So these phases are classified based on morphology, based on anatomy, or based on the sexual activities. And their last stage is nothing but old age called as death. Like this, based on the stages, it is being classified. So it may be called as stages of life cycle or phases of life cycle. So the first one is called as juvenile phase. So this juvenile phase is also called as vegetative phase. Juvenile phase is also called as vegetative phase. So this juvenile phase is nothing but as a new individual is born, that is called as from the birth, keep on growing till its maturity. So this may be even called as childhood, or we use the word birth, from the birth, keep on growing to give rise to till maturity. So this period is called as juvenile phase. Whereas even in the plants also, the plant is keep on growing till its flowering stage. Or we say in animals, the baby or animals keep on growing before its sexual activities. Before its sexual activities, that phase is called as juvenile phase. Now, we'll go for the second one called as maturity. Maturity phase, or it is nothing but reproductive phase. Maturity, or we use the word reproductive. Once an individual is mature, they start producing reproductive activities. They start producing the young ones. That period is called as maturity. I'll repeat this. Once the sex organs have been produced, that sex organ starts producing the gametes. That gametes fuses to give rise to young ones, and this will be continued from the reproduction. This phase will be continued till the old age. Till the old age, and this periods are called as maturity phase. Whereas in the plants, the plants are classified based on their maturities. For example, first one is called as annuals. So annuals means they complete their life cycle within a year. Biennials. The word biennials means the plant completes its life cycle within 2 years. Normally in this, the first year is vegetative and the second year will be reproductive phase. Whereas the third phase is nothing but many called as perennial. Perennial. Meaning of perennial, it produces many number of years. The plants are produced many number of years. They are called as perennial. Like this, annuals, biennials and perennials are also present. Next, based on the flowering. Based on the flowering, again it is classified into different types. One is called as monocarpic flowers or monocarpic plants. So, in the plants, maturity phase arises. After that, they are based on the flowering. It is classified in different types. First one is monocarpic. The meaning of monocarpic, the plant starts flowering only once. They start flowering only once in their lifetime. Hence, it is called as monocarpic. Monocarpic means they produce flowers only once in their lifetime. Hence it is called as monocarpic. Examples for this is the bamboo. So this bamboo produces the flowering only once, whether in the 500 to 100 years. 500 to 100 years, they start producing only once flowering. Whereas in the other example called as again, they flower only once in 100 years. Once in 100 years, they start only once they start producing flowering. Hence it is called as monocarpic plants. We'll go for the next one. So we'll start with the next one called as polycarpic. The meaning of polycarpic. Here the word indicates poly means many. So within a year they start producing the flowers for many times. So one of this is, the example is Stropalocanthus kundiae, or it is called as Neela Karanji. This plant starts producing the flowers once in 12 years. Once in 12 years they start producing the flowering. So here many times the flowers have been produced for that polycarpic, whereas in a Neela Karanji, once in 12 years they start producing the flowers. The flowers was produced around about 2006. So 2006 it was being flowered. Later on it was flowered in 2018 called as September, October. So in this month, September, October 2018, it has been flowered. Next 12 years, they start producing the flowers. So this is in plants. So monocarpic plants, and polycarpic plants. Now we continue with the animals. So in animals also starts reproducing. So in animals we say that the male animal is different, female animal is different, and they start crossing and produces, the transfer of gametes takes place and they start producing fertilization and give birth to the young ones. Whereas here again animals are classified based on their reproductives. There are two types. One is called as seasonal breeders. The meaning of seasonal breeders: only in a particular season they start reproducing. Example, frogs. Frogs starts reproducing only in the rainy season. Like this, some of the animals only in a particular season they reproduce, so they are called as seasonal breeders. Now we'll go for the other one called as continuous breeders. The next one is called continuous breeders. The meaning of continuous breeders: this will be reproducing many number of times in a year, or based on their sexual activities it will be keep on producing the young ones continuously. There is no restriction, so they are called as continuous breeders. So monkeys, humans, all this will come under this continuous breeders. So we'll start with the next. In females, called as placental mammals. In placental mammals, or there is a presence of a placental connection between the mother and the fetus. Such type of female placental mammals, there are two types. One is called as osteus cycle and the other one is called as menstruation cycle. So this osteus cycle, this is always taking place in the non-primates. So the word non-primates are nothing but here called as cows, sheep, deer, rats, dog, tiger, all this will come under non-primates. In this non-primates, the reproduction takes place between intervals between two successive cycles varies from few months to over a year. Few months to year, the intervals of cycles takes place under the reproductive cycles. So this is usually called as Easter cycle. In this Easter cycle, blood loss will not be there. Whereas when you go for a menstruation cycle, this menstruation cycle takes place in the primates. So this always takes place in the monkeys, apes, mammals, and including humans also comes under menstruation cycle. This menstruation cycle takes place once in 4 weeks. So the intervals between the successive cycles will take place between the 4 weeks, and here in this menstruation cycle blood loss is being present. So this is the difference between osteus and menstruation cycle. We'll go for the third one called as, first one is juvenile, the second one is maturity, and the third one is called as aging phase. Aging phase is also called as senescence. So in this senescence it is also called as old phase. Once the reproductive activities are stopped and the metabolic activities slows down and they become aged and they become old, and after the old it leads to the death of an individual. Hence this is called as aging phase, or it is called as senescence.